Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into another classic that, as hard as it is to believe, came out over 18 years ago. God, I feel old.
If Japan wants to reach America, they have to go through you to do so. And that will not happen.
All hands, Battlestations!
Battlestations Midway. The game released in 2007 for the Xbox 360 and PC and was developed by Eidos Hungary. This title is one that often goes overlooked, or just doesn't see as much discussion because it's a bit overshadowed by its sequel, Battlestations Pacific, which is essentially a straight-up upgrade in almost every way. But that doesn't make Midway a bad game. We're going to be covering the PC version of the game today, which is often available for sale on Steam for incredibly low prices, like less than $1. But without further ado, let's check it out. So first, let's touch on just what Battlestations Midway is and what its gameplay is like. We've been covering a lot of arcade Warbirds titles on the channel recently, and while this game does contain quite a bit of third-person arcade flight action, I wouldn't really put it in the same category as the likes of titles like Secret Weapons Over Normandy or Heroes of the Pacific. In those games, there's an extreme emphasis put on flight and flight only, but here, that's not the case. Midway splits its action up between both air and naval gameplay, depending on the mission or game mode you're in. And to further separate it from the genre that some of those other titles belong to, Midway is less an action game and more of a strategy game. As a matter of fact, you could probably complete a number of the missions in the game without even leaving the strategic map screen, which is where a lot of the gameplay takes place here. From here, you're able to command any units that are under your control. You can order them to engage enemies, plot courses for flanking maneuvers, or in the case of aircraft carriers or airfields, control what squadrons of aircraft get spawned. This is a pretty important part of gameplay since aircraft are incredibly capable both at offense and defense, and if they're managed correctly, you can really make life easier for yourself. Which managing these, regardless of where you're spawning them, is handled all the same. With an airfield or aircraft selected, you press a hotkey, shift on mouse and keyboard controls, which opens up a window where you can then manage your aircraft. You're allotted a maximum of 4 squadrons and up to 12 planes at once, so you can deploy aircraft as you see fit, depending on the situation. Incoming dive bombers, better get some fighters up to intercept. Trying to take out destroyers providing AA cover for an enemy carrier, dive bombers will do the trick. Destroying said carrier, torpedo bombers. All in all, there are 5 different aircraft types available to use: fighters, dive bombers, torpedo bombers, level bombers, and reconnaissance. Now, we've mentioned how the tactical map is used for commanding your units, but it also lets you, at any time, take direct control of them, switching the gameplay from something that's sort of akin to an RTS-like experience and turning it into a more traditional third-person action game. It's all done extremely fluidly too. Like, say for instance, you just took control of a squadron of wildcats, but you forgot about something or just need to check something else on the map. If you hop back into the tactical view, the AI will instantly retake control of your squadron, following whatever orders they were assigned until you exit the map screen again. So gameplay, particularly in the later stages of the game, sort of evolves into this state where you'll be giving orders part of the time, and then other times maybe taking control of something that maybe you'd rather personally do than let the AI do, then backing back out to the map to assess the situation, and then sort of rinsing and repeating until hopefully the battle is won. And when it comes to naval warfare, the game features a number of ship classes, ranging from PT boats all the way up to battleships, carriers, and everything in between, including submarines. And it's been quite a while since I actually touched World of Warships, but the gameplay while controlling ships here feels remarkably similar to how I remember it feeling, with the biggest difference being that Midway doesn't feature any sort of consumables or abilities to use. You might wonder then, how does the game handle ship repairs? Well, I actually really like the game's take on it. By pressing the R key, you're able to pull up your ship's repair window. This opens up an interface that, you can kind of see towards the top here, has these 3 little men that represent the ship's crew. In the default configuration, where your crew is just left alone and unassigned, if you take damage and your ship starts taking on water, has a fire breakout, a weapon gets damaged, etc., your repair crews will work equally on repairing all aspects of your ship's damage. But in this menu, you can choose to assign your crew to specific tasks, and I'm sure you can see how this would be beneficial, because say for instance you just took 3 direct torpedo hits, you probably don't want your crew to be doing anything else besides trying to seal off all that incoming water. The same would go for if you had a fire break out on the ship, for example. I really thought this was a well done system, and I think it's implemented perfectly in the game. All in all, command and control of both aircraft and ships was handled really well in my opinion, and from a strategy standpoint, each class of either has a distinct purpose which makes them valuable in their own ways. And although gameplay is definitely arcade-based in nature, this isn't a super detailed sim by any means, there is a bit of realism to it. So if you're trying to take down an enemy cruiser, just sending something with only machine guns equipped like a Wildcat squadron is going to end very badly. It's not like how in some of the Ace Combat games where a plane's machine guns alone can take out ships. Here, you'll need to switch to something different, like a torpedo or dive bomber, to have any real effect. While we're back on the topic of aircraft, we might as well touch on the flight model. And I'll be honest here, this is not the game's strongest aspect. Everything about it just feels sort of bland, might be the best way to describe it. The aircraft all felt extremely similar to one another to me, and when compared to a dedicated flight arcade game, I would say the flight model definitely leaves a little to be desired. I can't quite put my finger on exactly why, but I think at least some part of it is due to the lack of information that gets conveyed to the player via visual or audio cues. It's funny because when I was just playing through Blazing Angels recently, I thought that they went a bit overboard with this, but here I think Midway would have really benefited from the addition of some slight screen or camera shake in certain scenarios, like when your plane is approaching stall limits, firing machine guns, etc. Alright, let's talk game modes. Not counting multiplayer, the game offers 5, one of which is the game's dedicated tutorial called Naval Academy. I would highly recommend checking this out first, as I found it did a really good job in covering the mechanics of the game. From the basics, like ship and plane navigation, to issuing commands, using submarines, and more. It's quite in-depth and really prepared me for any aspect of gameplay that came up while I was playing through the story or other game modes. Next is the main story mode, called US Campaign, which we'll go into a bit more detail on that in the next section when we discuss the story. And then there's the 3 remaining game modes, which sort of serve as extra content, and they take the form of Ship Challenge, Plane Challenge, and Submarine Challenge. Each of these offers a few different missions to play through, and is unfortunately the only area in the game where you're able to control Japanese ships and planes. Midway lacks any sort of skirmish mode, and there's no Japanese campaign to play through, so this is the best we get. But hey, at least we do get the chance to take to the skies in the Zero, and you can even take the helm of the absolute monster that is the Yamato, a battleship that is almost as huge as our continued partnership with Apex Gaming PCs. With custom-built PCs available in different configurations at various price points, they're sure to have an option for any gamer out there, especially when you factor in their affordable and flexible financing options. Whether you're on a budget and opting for the entry-grade Apex Bronze, or looking to dominate your competition with the Streamer Plus, you can rest easy knowing that your investment is protected by the Apex standard 2-year parts and lifetime labor warranty. For a limited time, you can use my 3% discount code JARBO at checkout when purchasing. See link in the video description below. Alright, back to the video. Okay, let's move on to story. The game puts you in the shoes of Henry Walker, a recent Naval Academy graduate who's found himself at a new posting, Pearl Harbor. You can probably guess what happens next. The campaign features 11 missions that can take anywhere from 10 to 30-ish minutes to complete, depending on how many times you fail, of course. Which some of the missions can be a bit difficult, especially since there's no checkpoint system, and if you fail, you have to start over from the beginning. You start off the campaign as a relatively unimportant figure in the war, commanding smaller vessels like PT boats and destroyers, but as time goes on and Henry begins to prove himself as a capable commander, this eventually changes, and by the end of your run, you'll find yourself commanding the famous carrier, the USS Enterprise. In the beginning stages, you'll find that things are much more in direct control of your unit focused, but by the time you're 4 or 5 missions in, there will be more of a command element in play as you work to push back against the Japanese across the Pacific. You'll defend and assault islands and bases, shoot down lots of enemy fighters, and sink even more warships along the way. There's some pretty cool moments in the campaign, including a cameo by PT Boat 109, commanded by none other than John F. Kennedy himself.
This is Lieutenant Kennedy, PT-109. We're making a torpedo run on the transport. Lieutenant Kennedy here, target destroyed. We're returning to defend the lagoon.
That's for Pearl, you bastards! Stay off my beaches!
Got any Irish blood in you, Walker? Only it's a long time since I saw a man enjoy a fight so much.
They started it, Lieutenant.
Prior to and post each mission, you get a cutscene that depicts Henry's current situation in the war.
Yorktown was just about in one piece. I had no option but to take us back to Pearl. I guess we came out about even at Coral Sea. Captain Walker reporting, sir.
I've heard a lot about you, Mr. Walker. You're not quite what I expected.
May I ask what you were expecting, sir?
Older, taller, looking like Captain America, I guess. At ease, Captain. Take a seat.
Thank you, sir.
How's Jack?
Admiral Fletcher's pretty battered, sir, but he'll pull through.
Well, the Yorktown's in even worse shape. Yard Chief tells me she needs 3 months in dry dock. I've ordered him to have her ready in 3 days. Whether she makes it or not, I don't have many options, Captain. You're going to Midway without her. We've broken the Japanese signal codes. Intercepts suggest the enemy is planning to invade Midway.
Skipper, take us 10 degrees to port. This man had his own god and his own family. Why would he attack us?
These are just fine in my opinion. Henry's story didn't really blow me away or anything, but it got the job done. Gameplay was by far the highlight of the story for me, particularly any of the levels that put me in command of either a carrier or airfield so I could command and manage squadrons of aircraft. Before we conclude, I just want to briefly touch on presentation, both the visual and audio aspects of the game. Visually, I'd say the game holds up really well. While the cutscenes definitely show their age, all the in-engine stuff looks really good. You can tell that it's not a modern game, but for its age, I'd say it's pretty impressive. I also really enjoyed the game's color palette, which I'd describe as pretty bright and refreshing, which is a nice change of pace from sort of the more dull-looking World War II games we sometimes get. And on top of this, the game's UI, tactical map, and menu elements all had a really good World War II vintage sort of look going on. Not quite on the level of Heroes of the Pacific, but still pretty impressive nonetheless. As far as audio goes, the game, surprisingly to me, has one of the better soundtracks I've heard in this genre. But I'll let you be the judge. Here are just a few snippets from some of my favorites. Sound effect wise, bombs, machine guns, ship cannons, planes, etc., they all sound good, although I would have liked to hear a little more oomph to some of them.
Enemy fire! Enemy squadron destroyed, sir.
Battlestations Midway is a solid entry. If you can pick it up during a Steam sale, I'd say it's 100% worth it, although I'd probably hold off on a full price purchase unless you're really looking to try it out. Battlestations Pacific, Midway's successor, is certainly the better game, which don't worry, we'll be covering that soon, but Midway is still a solid title worth experiencing at least once. Let me know your thoughts on the game down below, and as always, thanks for watching. Until next time.